The envelope was thick cream-colored and hand-delivered, no stamp, just my name in blocky handwriting I recognized instantly. My father's. I'd just gotten home from work, kicked off my heels, and was halfway through microwaving leftover biryani when I saw it wedged between the door and frame. It wasn't my birthday. It wasn't a holiday. But something about the weight of that paper already felt final. I sat on the couch, turned off the microwave, and opened it. Rachel, don't bother coming to the family reunion next month. We're cutting ties. This family no longer includes you. Dad, no explanation, no softening. Just 6 sentences written like a business memo. The air left my lungs like a slow leak. My eyes scanned the page again. Not because I didn't understand, but because I did. Completely. This wasn't just about the loan I refused to co-sign. It wasn't even about the argument over Luis's spending. This was years of tension boiled into a single sterile statement. And now it was documented. Paper proof that blood didn't guarantee belonging. My hands didn't shake. They should have. But all I felt was a strange stillness, like my body had expected this long before my mind had caught up. For a moment, I thought about replying. Something clever, something cutting. Something to match the cruelty of being disowned on printer paper. Instead, I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the small garden I'd been growing on my apartment balcony. Lavender, tomatoes, basil. Then I picked up my phone, opened the last message from him, some logistics about the reunion, and typed a single word. Understood. I hit send. No emojis, no period. Just understanding. Cold, clean, and irreversible. Then I folded the letter neatly back into the envelope, walked to the kitchen, and opened the microwave. The biryani was cold now, but I wasn't hungry anymore. I stared at the paper for 5 full minutes. Then I texted him one word. Understood. The last time we were all in the same room, Luis was pacing in circles, waving papers like he'd discovered fire. This is expansion, Dad. We're thinking too small, he said, slapping the kitchen table with a proposal from some flashy landscaping tech startup in North Carolina. We just need a bit more credit to scale. Rachel can co-sign. I didn't even glance at the paperwork. I already knew the numbers wouldn't add up. They never did. Luis, I said calmly, you already missed 2 payments on the last loan. The bank called me, not you. I paid it down to protect our family's credit. Not again. Dad looked away, pretending to read his coffee mug. He never liked confrontation, but he hated disappointing Luis more. Luis leaned in, his voice syrupy slick. Rach, come on. You're an accountant. You know this makes sense. We're family. You're doing well because of this business. Help us grow it. I smiled thinly. I'm doing well because I cleaned up after your messes. Quietly. For years. That's when the mask slipped. Luis turned cold. You think you're better than us now, huh? Just because you moved out, got your little condo, your 401k. You forgot who helped you when you started. Dad chimed in, not with support, but with silence. The kind that spoke louder than shouting. I'm not co-signing, I said. And this conversation's over. No one followed me when I stood up and grabbed my coat. I waited a second longer, hoping anyone would say my name. No one did. In the days that followed, I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself to cousins or uncles or our church friends when they called. I just stopped answering. I didn't show up for Sunday dinner. I canceled my spot on the reunion Airbnb. I watered my plants. I called my therapist. I made a spreadsheet of all the money I'd quietly funneled into the business over the years. Then I stared at the total. $47,890.12. If I was no longer family, then I'd stop being their safety net too. The banker's name was Clara, mid-40s, kind eyes, blue blazer. She offered me bottled water and a clipboard like we were about to negotiate a car lease. Are you sure you want to proceed with removal, Ms. Mendez? She asked, tapping her pen against the form gently. This will fully release you from the shared liability. It's permanent. I nodded once. Yes, I've reviewed everything. Clara glanced at the file again. It's a $260,000 balance. They'll have to refinance. You're aware of the consequences to the other parties. I'm aware, I said, meeting her gaze without flinching. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. People come in every day cutting ties with spouses, business partners, even parents. My story wasn't special in that office, but it was mine. She walked me through the paperwork, one document at a time. I initialed every page, double-checked the terms, and signed cleanly at the bottom. When we got to the final form, Clara paused. Last chance, she said. Not as a warning, more like a courtesy. I'm ready, I replied. She slid the document into the scanner. With a gentle beep, the system confirmed co-signer removed. That was it. No drama, no sirens. Just a quiet detachment of my name from everything they once built on my back. I gathered my things, thanked Clara, and stepped outside. The sun hit my face differently, sharper, truer. The air smelled like honeysuckle and asphalt. No one from the family knew. I didn't post about it, didn't text a soul. No revenge, no announcement. I just walked 2 blocks to my car, turned off my phone, and sat behind the wheel for a minute breathing. It took 17 minutes to erase my name. I'd spent 17 years earning their trust. By the time I finished my coffee the next morning, I had 17 missed calls. By noon, that number climbed to 48, all from one contact, Mom. 3 voicemails waited under Dad, and 8 emails flooded in each subject line, more desperate than the last. Urgent. Call us back. Please respond ASAP. We need to talk about the bank. I didn't open them. Not yet. Instead, I drove to the lake near my apartment, the one with the old oak bench under the sycamores. I brought seed crackers for the ducks and let my phone vibrate itself into madness beside me. A young couple sat on the grass nearby, giggling as their toddler tried to chase geese with a half-eaten apple. The woman had her head on the man's shoulder. They looked tired, real tangled in the kind of mess that still had love underneath it. I used to think our family had that kind of mess too. Loud but loyal. Tough love with soft roots. But roots don't hold when they only grow toward one child and not the other. I finally opened one of the emails. It was from my father. Short, clipped. Rachel. The loan restructuring didn't go through. We need to discuss next steps. This affects everyone. Dad. There was no hope you're well. No acknowledgement of the letter he sent. No apology. Just logistics. I clicked play on one of the voicemails. His voice cracked midway through. We didn't think you'd actually go through with it. Rachel, please call me. I locked the screen and tossed the phone back in my bag. Of course they didn't think I'd go through with it. I was always the fixer, the invisible backbone, the family's reliable plan B. But they taught me something important when they mailed me that letter, that family can be revoked. That love, if conditional, is just currency. So I stopped paying. They cut me off first. All I did was finish the sentence. By the second day, the messages shifted from panic to guilt. Mom, he didn't mean the letter. You know how he gets when he's upset. Family is family, mija. We survive storms together. Dad. You're hurting everyone, not just me. You think this doesn't affect your mother, be the bigger person. You always were. I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because there was nothing left to explain. They weren't reaching for reconciliation. They were reaching for control. That night I heard a bang at my door, followed by a voice I hadn't heard in weeks. Rachel, open up, Luis. His words slurred into each other, but the rage underneath was clear. You think you're better than us. You ruined everything, you selfish bang. Open the damn door. I stayed still. The lights were off. My keys were in my hand just in case. I didn't even breathe loud. I waited until the banging turned to muttering, then to silence. Then I picked up the phone and called building security, not the police. I wasn't here to escalate. I was just done managing his damage. Security arrived fast. Luis was gone by the time they checked the hallway, but they took a report and promised to flag his name at the front desk. I thanked them, locked both deadbolts, and sat on my couch with a blanket over my knees. Years ago, I would have opened the door. Years ago, I would have let him cry it out, clean him up, tuck his rage under my own silence just to keep the peace. Not anymore. No yelling. No texting back. No need to perform my pain for their comfort. If silence was a weapon, I had finally learned how to use it. By the end of the week, the business started unraveling. The landscaping contracts, Dad bragged about at every barbecue 2 of them pulled out. One of the bank's credit officers flagged the loan account for reassessment. Without my name on it, the collateral to liability ratio tipped just enough to trigger a freeze. The storm they thought I couldn't cause had already started. I wasn't proud of it. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. But the thing about family-run businesses is when one cog stops turning, the whole engine hiccups. And this time, I wasn't there to smooth it over. Then came the Facebook post. My cousin Mariella, who had always lived somewhere between nosy and well-meaning, uploaded a screenshot of the letter Dad sent me. This is what Rachel got instead of a phone call. Just so everyone knows, it spread faster than I expected. The comments section ignited. This can't be real. Wait, is this about the money? Wow, she's done everything for them. And of course, family is sacred. You don't air this stuff online. Within 48 hours, my inbox looked like a war zone. Some aunts called me cold, said I was turning my back on tradition. Uncles weighed in with backhanded messages like, "We all make sacrifices, Rachel." But others, the quiet ones, sent messages that lingered. "I saw what they did to your mother when she wanted her own business too. They made me feel like the extra piece too. I wish I had walked away sooner." People began to see the fracture lines in our perfect family portrait. It wasn't about one letter or one loan. It was a pattern. One I'd stepped out of, and now it glared like a spotlight on everything they wanted to keep in the dark. The noise didn't shake me. It clarified everything. Because when people finally saw the letter, they didn't ask why I left. They asked why I stayed so long. The subject line read, "Let's talk. Please." It landed in my inbox at 6:42 a.m. Dad's usual email hour, back when he'd send me invoices to reconcile or awkward client replies he didn't want to type himself. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I clicked. "Rachel, we've had time to reflect. I overreacted. Maybe we all did. Let's not make this permanent. We'd like to bring you back into the company, full voting power. Your role is important. You matter. Let's meet soon and clear the air." Dad. Not a single word about the letter. Not a sentence about Louise showing up drunk at my door. No real ownership. Just corporate language and vague peace offerings. In the past, I might have folded. I would have convinced myself this was progress, that a half step was better than none, that maybe, just maybe, this was how reconciliation looked in a family like ours. But I'd grown past the version of myself who needed breadcrumbs and second chances to feel seen. I opened a folder labeled Mendez Exit Drafts. Inside was a PDF I'd written the day after I got the letter, when I realized this break wasn't temporary. I hadn't sent it then because part of me still hoped for honesty. An apology with teeth. Not this. Subject, Ray, let's talk. Attachment, Mendez Business, resignation.pdf. My message was clean, deliberate. "Hi, Dad. Thanks for the message. Please find attached my formal resignation from all involvement in Mendez & Sons landscaping, effective retroactively to the date of your letter. Wishing you all the best moving forward." Rachel. I hit send, leaned back, and let the quiet settle around me like a weighted blanket. There was no regret, no aftertaste of guilt, just peace. For years I fought to earn my seat at their table, where decisions were whispered, praise was rationed, and my worth had to be defended with spreadsheets. But I wasn't asking for a seat anymore. I was hosting my own damn dinner. Later that night, I got one final email. No subject, no words, just a read receipt. I didn't want their seat at the table anymore. I'd built my own damn table. The community center was nothing fancy, just beige walls, a flickering exit sign, and folding chairs that creaked every time someone shifted. But every seat was filled. About 40 women had shown up for the panel Women in Wealth Building Generational Power. I stood backstage nursing a paper cup of lukewarm coffee, wondering for the third time why I'd said yes. I wasn't a public speaker. I wasn't even sure if I belonged up there. But then the moderator introduced me. Rachel Mendez left a secure position in her family's business to start her own financial firm. But her story isn't just about business. It's about boundaries, bravery, and building something new from the ground up. I stepped up to the mic and looked out at the room. Not one face looked like they came to hear polished success. They came for something real. So I gave it to them. Sometimes I said the most expensive thing you'll ever fund is someone else's comfort at the cost of your self-worth. And sometimes that person wears your last name. A few women chuckled low, painful laughs, the kind that come from remembering. I talked about financial entanglement in families, about the guilt that keeps us quiet, about the myth that love and loyalty always have to mean yes. I didn't talk about the letter. I didn't need to. The room already knew. During the Q&A, a young woman in the front row raised her hand. She wore a faded jean jacket with the sleeves pushed up. Her voice shook as she spoke. "You remind me of my sister," she said. She was the strong one, the one who always fixed things. And when she finally left, no one said thank you. They just said she gave up. I stepped off the stage, walked to her level, and I told her this. Sometimes leaving is the most generous thing we do for ourselves. And for them. Because if she stayed, they never would have learned. If she left with her dignity, she didn't give up. She woke up. After the panel, several women came up. A few hugged me. One cried into my shoulder. Another whispered, "You helped me remember I'm not crazy." And in that moment, I understood something. This wasn't just about walking away. They raised me to serve the family. I raised myself to save the future. The reunion went on without me. Silver Lake Park. Same spot as every year. Same rented pavilion with the long folding tables, aluminum trays of food, and a rented speaker playing cumbia, loud enough to drown the tension. I knew the rhythm of the day by heart, how the men would set up the grill like they were launching a rocket, how the older Tayas would circle the plastic tables gossiping with plates balanced on their laps, and how the little ones would chase bubbles like nothing in the world was broken. But this year, my name wasn't in the group text. No RSVP request. No check-in call. Still, I knew it was happening. Facebook has a way of reminding you where you're not wanted but still missed. Photos started to pop up, a shot of Luis flipping carne asada with his usual dramatic flair, a few grainy selfies with the family dog in a bandana, and a group photo where everyone was smiling a little too hard. Then came the one that landed directly on my phone. Mariella again. No caption, just a single image. A table only half full, Mom sitting alone with sunglasses on, Dad facing the grill like it was a confession booth, Luis on his phone pacing near the trash bins, a few cousins in the background talking, none of them looking toward the camera. I studied their body language the way I used to study client statements, reading between the numbers. Then Mariella followed up. Without you there, it felt like we were just pretending. I didn't reply. Because pretending was what they'd mastered. Pretending I hadn't carried their chaos for years. Pretending silence wasn't a punishment. Pretending the letter wasn't a scar they chose to send. Others messaged too. Tias, who'd called me selfish months ago, now said things like, "Your dad seemed tired. He didn't eat much. It wasn't the same without you." But the truth is, I didn't miss it. I missed the idea of it, a family built on love instead of obligation. And maybe they missed that too, but too late. Sometimes absence is louder than presence. Sometimes leaving is the real legacy. The voicemail came at 8:03 p.m. on a Thursday. I was chopping parsley in my kitchen, a glass of red wine half full beside the cutting board. The day had been quiet, just meetings, client calls, invoices sent. No emotion, no drama. Until the screen lit up one new voicemail, Dad. I stared at it for a while. The last time he called me was months ago, right before the letter. Back when he still referred to me as our books girl and ended conversations with "don't forget about the reunion." That version of him felt like a distant relative now. I didn't open it right away. I finished making dinner, ate slowly, rinsed the dishes, watered the basil on the windowsill, fed the stray cat that had started visiting my fire escape. Let life keep moving uninterrupted. Then finally I sat on the couch, pulled the blanket over my legs, and pressed play. Rachel, I was wrong. Pause. Call me when you're ready. 7 words. The closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from him. His voice was raw, lower, slower. Not angry, not proud. Just stripped. I leaned back into the cushions and stared at the ceiling. There was a part of me, the old part, that flickered at the sound of his voice. That part still remembered cookouts, birthday candles, my first car payment. That part wondered what if, but the woman sitting in this apartment wasn't built on what ifs anymore. I stood and walked to my desk. The lavender candle was waiting unlit, untouched since I moved into this place on my own terms. I struck the match and let it catch, slowly filling the room with the soft scent of calm. Then I reached into the drawer and pulled out the envelope that had arrived that morning. Inside was the official certificate, Mendez Financial Advisory, LLC, sole proprietor, Rachel Elena Mendez. Same last name, new legacy. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd signed me off like I was a line item, but I'd taken that same name and turned it into something unshakable. I opened my journal and wrote it in ink. He signed me off the family. I signed myself into something better. Then I blew out the candle and let the smoke carry the rest away. Have you ever been told that family is everything, even when it hurts you the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe that peace sometimes starts with walking away, subscribe. There's more to say.